Hey everyone, welcome to this session. That's the sixth in the series of lessons on punctuation marks in English. I hope you remember that we divided these punctuation marks into 5 categories. Now, what were the criteria of the division? Do you remember? Well, this division was on the basis of the similarity of their function, their uses, or on the basis of their similar appearance. In this session, we will take up the 5th category, and that includes the apostrophe, the quotation mark, the ellipsis. Dear students, I hope you have already watched those previous 5 lessons in that we have discussed the other punctuation marks in English. If not, you will find the link to those videos in the description box of this video. Let's take up first the apostrophe. Dear students, the symbol of apostrophe looks like the comma, but they are totally different. Their functions are different, and even the place where they are placed, that's also different. The comma is placed at the bottom of the letter, whereas apostrophes are stuck, flying around words. Just the symbols might look same, but they are used differently and placed differently. At the same time, this apostrophe might look like a single inverted comma. Then how you can differentiate? Please remember, if this symbol is used as the closing single quotation mark, it is always paired with an opening quotation mark. Now let's take up the apostrophe. Well, what is an apostrophe? How does its symbol look like? And what are its uses? Let's get the answers. The symbol that's displayed on the screen is called an apostrophe in the English language. It is used for 3 purposes. The first is to mark or show the omission of one or more letters, that's the contraction. The second is to show or mark the possession. And the third one is marking of plurals of individual characters. Let's understand the first use in detail. The first use is to mark the contraction. Now, what is contraction? A contraction is a shortened version of the written and spoken forms of a word or word group created by omission of internal letters and sounds. In simple words, we can say contraction is when we combine 2 words into a single word, as is seen in these examples. Here are the words which are written in the contracted form and the full form. Let's take up the first block. Aren't, are not. Aren't is the contracted form, are not is the full form. Just notice the use of apostrophe in the contracted form in place of a letter. So that letter is omitted, and in place of that letter, the apostrophe is used. As in the first example, are not. Letter O is omitted here, and in place of that, an apostrophe is used. Are not. These 2 words are combined together to make the contracted form, and it's pronounced aren't. In the same way, aren't is a contraction of cannot. Couldn't, could not. Didn't, did not. And so on. Here, please pause the video and note down all these contracted forms. That will be quite useful for you. In this lesson, I am giving you all the contracted forms. Please pause on each slide and note them down. Please notice the omission of the letters. In some cases, 1 letter is omitted, as in aren't, just O is omitted. And in other cases like she had, she has, 2 letters are omitted, HA. Now let's see the use of these contracted words in a sentence. It's raining outside. I'll be there. Who's at the door? I'm planning to write a book someday. So, we shorten the word by removing 1 letter or 2 letters. Then we use the apostrophe in place of that letter. Another important thing with contractions that you should keep in your mind is that you can only shorten and combine 2 words at a time, not more than that. For example, if you are writing a sentence, he is not coming to college, And if you use the contracted form, then either you would say he's not coming to the college or he isn't coming to the college. You will combine either he is or is not. Not all these three words together. We will not combine in that way. Only two words at a time can be combined to make the contractions. The second use of apostrophes is to mark possession, show possession. That is, you can use an apostrophe to show that a thing or person belongs to something or someone. That is, relates to something or someone. Here, possession refers to the ownership or relationship. In most cases, we add an apostrophe before s for singular nouns to show possession. Please pay attention. That's singular nouns. Let's understand it through some examples. A car's engine. Yesterday's weather. Just notice, instead of saying the engine of car and the weather of yesterday, we have used apostrophe s to show the relationship. So, this is the case of the singular nouns. What should we do in case of plural nouns or a noun that ends with s? For example, boys, tables, Thomas. So, we have two plural nouns that end in s and one personal noun that ends in s. Now, how should we use apostrophe s here? Look at the examples. Boys, balls. Tables, legs. Thomas's car. It's quite simple. If it's a singular noun that ends in s, like Thomas here, add an apostrophe plus s as you would naturally pronounce an extra s like Thomas's car. But in case of plural nouns that end in s, just add the apostrophe. Here you can omit this s. Boys, balls. Tables, legs. We are not pronouncing this s after the apostrophe, so we are not writing it here. Generally, it's not written also. But there are some plural nouns that do not end with s. In that case, we would use apostrophe and s. For example, the children's room, the women's club. So, we can say the proper nouns, which are names of people, cities, countries, or places that end in s, can form the possessive either by adding the apostrophe plus s or simply adding the apostrophe. Today, both forms are considered correct. The third use of apostrophe is to make a letter plural. Let's take up the example. How many M's are there in accommodation? The answer is there are 2 M's in accommodation. Okay. Another example is how many U's are there in vacuum? Well, I suggest that you should answer this question and write down your answer in the comments. In case of possession, we talked of nouns. But what about pronouns? In case of pronouns, we use possessive pronouns and we do not use apostrophe s with them. Like hers, theirs, yours, ours, etc. We do not use apostrophe s with these possessive pronouns. The next punctuation symbol that we are talking about is the quotation marks, or it's also called as speech marks. There are 2 kinds of speech marks, single and double. Well, what's our quotation marks? The quotation marks are a type of punctuation used to mark an exactly replicated word or statement. This can be a phrase by a person or character, the title of a work, or to indicate or emphasize the alternate use of a word. Well, how do they look? Quotation marks take the appearance of a set of inverted commas and are used in pairs, consisting of an opening quotation mark and a closing one. When we say single and double, they almost do the same job. But I suggest when you quote someone, use the double inverted commas, double speech marks. The quotation marks are also used to indicate or to give someone or something a special description. For example, she told him to neatly write the word holiday. In this example, the word holiday is written within the quotation mark, as it gives the special description of the word. Sometimes it's also used to emphasize a word. For example, he had a chat with the neighbors yesterday. So here in this example, the word chat has been given emphasis. Maybe here it's used in a sarcastic way. Another use of the quotation marks that everybody should know is that these marks are used for components such as titles of a book, chapter titles in a book, titles of poems, essays, stories, articles, whether it's in the print or online. Here I would like to mention, please pay your attention. In the American English, the title of an entire composition is written in italics, whereas the title of a short work, one that is or could be the part of a large undertaking, in quotation marks. For example, the first chapter of You Can Heal Your Life is titled I Believe. Just notice in this example, the title of the book You Can Heal Your Life, it's written in italics, and the title of the chapter I Believe, that's written within the quotation marks. Well, dear students, when you will use these quotation marks in your writing, you might be confused regarding the place of the full stop or period after the quotation marks. Generally, in British English, this full stop, it goes inside the quotation marks. The same thing can be said for the commas as well. Let's have some examples. He said, I will be going to the party later. Just notice and check the place of the full stop in this example. It's used within the quotation marks. Now let's look at the example of a comma used within the quotation marks. Don't be late for class, the teacher said. The comma which we use to separate the quotation is written within the quotation marks. A point to be noted here is that there is a difference in British English and the American English regarding the uses of full stop and commas inside or outside the quotation marks. As I told you earlier also, in the American English, these punctuation marks such as commas and full stops are generally included within the quotation mark, whether they are part of the original quote or not. Whereas in British English, commas and full stops are kept outside the quotation mark if they are not part of the sentence, and this practice is known as logical quoting. Have a look on these examples. Just notice the place of the full stop in these two sentences, and I hope this concept would be clearly understood. Now, there might be a question in your mind that if there is a question mark or the exclamation mark in the quote, in that case, should we place it inside the quotation mark or outside? As per the general guideline, they are used inside the quotation marks. Now, another important point that I would like to share here is that as we know that there are two types of quotation marks, single and double. Although it's said that they are used both for the same purposes, but there are some specific use of single quotation marks. Let's know what are these. The single quotation marks are used to indicate the quotation within the quotation, or we can use the term requote for this. Let's take up an example. Her daughter asked, "Why did you call that man irrational?" As the daughter quotes her mother, so that word is put within single inverted commas. That is, she requotes the word irrational. That's why the use of the single quotation marks. Now let's take up the last punctuation mark of this lesson, and that is the ellipsis. Now, what is an ellipsis? An ellipsis is a punctuation mark that consists of 3 dots. Where should we use this punctuation mark? Well, use an ellipsis when you omit a word, phrase, line, paragraph, or more from a quoted passage. Why is this symbol used in writing? Its use saves space or removes material that is less relevant, or they are useful in getting right to the point without delay or distraction. Ellipsis has 2 main functions. The first one I just mentioned, that is to indicate the omission of letters, thoughts, phrases, etc. For example, there are 2 sentences given. Read these 2 sentences and then you will come to know how ellipses are used to remove the material that is less relevant. Today, after hours of careful thought, we vetoed the bill. In the second sentence, today we vetoed the bill. In this sentence, we have removed the less relevant information, and in place of that, we have used the ellipsis. The ellipsis can also be used to express hesitation, changes of mood, suspense, or thoughts trailing off. To explain it in the simpler terms, we can say ellipses are used to indicate a pause or wavering in an otherwise straightforward sentence. For example, I don't know. I'm not sure. He said, I really don't understand this. In these sentences, we notice a kind of hesitation that's expressed by the use of ellipsis. Dear students, in this lesson we have studied 3 punctuation marks, the apostrophe, the quotation mark, and the ellipsis. Now in the next lesson we will have a quick revision of all of the punctuation marks and we will do some exercises as well. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining. Happy learning.